when we're in the 9 days, the question, the focus is, at a time of Churban Beis HaMikdash, a time of destruction, is how to rebuild. What do we need to do to get that third Beis HaMikdash down and get this Golus, this exile out of here, and once and for all bring Mashiach? And it's actually, the first thing you gotta do is be aware of it and be cognizant of the fact, and it is absolutely wild actually, that we're still here 2,000 years later, we're still doing Tisha B'Av, we're still thinking about it. So if you can do that, that's number one, why you're gonna get Geula. Because it is absolutely incredible that we're still here, still thinking about the Beis HaMikdash, and still ready for Geula. So what does it take to bring about Geula? What does it take to bring Mashiach? What does it take to bring that house down? Well, we've got to look at the reason for the Churban. Why was the first Beis HaMikdash destroyed? Well, why was the second Beis HaMikdash destroyed? That's the one that's relevant to us. But let's go back and see why was the first Beis HaMikdash destroyed. So, the first Beis HaMikdash stood for 410 years. And after 410 years, it was destroyed. The reason it was destroyed was, so the sages tell us that Viter HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem forgoed al avodah zara, gilui arayot, v'shfichut damim. He was ready to forgo and keep the Beis HaMikdash around, despite there having been the three worst crimes, which are idolatry, adultery, and murder. And he said, you know what? I'm ready to forgo those. In other words, it was pretty bad. Everything was pretty disastrous. And Hashem said, we're still going to keep the Beis HaMikdash. But then there came one thing, and he said, for that I can't. And that was Bittul Torah. So, Bittul Torah, right? And the basic explanation of it is not that Hashem says, okay, you're not learning Torah for 1 second, I'm going to destroy you. And it's not really that. It's the opposite approach. It's really that what brings Kedusha into this world, what allows Hashem to be housed in this world, is when we are immersed in a relationship with Him. And when we're not, because we're not learning Torah, so the Kedusha, the holiness, disappears. In other words, it's not a punishment, it's a consequence. If you learn Torah, it means you are a home for Hashem in this world. If you don't, then the home disappears. But regardless, that's not a subject now, because it's the second Beis HaMikdash that was destroyed that makes the problem for us. After the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the Jews went out to Galut Bavel. That was an exile by the Babylonians. They were sent out there till the Babylonians were taken over by the Persians, and then the Persian king, 70 years after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, exactly 70 years, King Koresh announced the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, and they built it again. And it was known that it would be 70 years. In fact, the whole Purim story is all about Achashverosh miscalculating the 70 years, because Yechonia, king of Yehuda, was sent out to exile 11 years before the actual Churban, with the Chorosh and the Masker, which means basically the Talmidei Chachamim, the sages, were taken away. So the Churban took place in stages. Nebuchadnezzar initially came and took all the leaders and brought them out to Bavel. And 11 years later, he went and destroyed the Beis HaMikdash with Tzidkiyahu, which proved to be a blessing in disguise, because it meant that when the rest of the Jewish people came over, there already was an infrastructure built by the sages who came there first because of that first exile. 70 years of Galut, and then they came back. The second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for what would seem to be a much less significant crime. It says the reason for the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash was Sinas Chinam, baseless hatred. Now, if you were to equate the two, which means idolatry, adultery, and murder, and not for those, Hashem shall forgo those, but then there was Bittul Torah, so clearly that's pretty bad. Versus Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred. Baseless hatred doesn't seem to be as much of a crime as the others. And yet, the second Beis HaMikdash, we went out to exile. The second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed by the Romans on Tisha B'Av again. And that Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and we went out to Golus, and the Jews were expecting to get back the Beis HaMikdash. 70 years passed and nothing happened. And all the years passed ever since then. We've been through everything. We've been through periods, right? In Jewish history, there's the Mishnah and the Gemara and the Savuroim and the Geonim and the Rishonim and the Achrayim. And then us, whatever we are, all the way down, and we're still here. And this is around 2,000 years. That's how long ago it was. And you wonder, 2,000 years of exile, and we still haven't got it back. Why is it that the first Beis HaMikdash was defined 70 years and you got it back, and the second Beis HaMikdash is 2,000 years, when it would seem the opposite should be true, that the second Beis HaMikdash, the crime, was less severe than the first one? And the answer is very simple. There is a halacha, there is a din that Rabbeinu Yonah says in the Gemara in Brachas, that there's two types of korban you would bring. So what happens if a person transgressed he's not sure if he did an Aveira or not, so he has to offer a korban osham. It's called osham tolui, a guilt offering. That guilt offering means if you're unsure, you ate a piece of meat, and then you have a doubt that that piece of meat may have been chaylev, may have been treif. So the question is, I don't know if I ate treif or not, I just don't know. What do? You bring a guilt offering, a korban osham. If you know you did the Aveira, in other words, someone tells you, you ate chaz treif. You did the actual sin. So you have to bring a korban chatos. Now, which would you say should be a severer korban? In other words, when you bring the sacrifice, it costs you money to bring. So, a korban means $10,000. So that's like a fine. 10 grand. Which would you say should be more expensive? The korban chatos, where you actually know what you did, you know you did the Aveira, versus a korban osham, where you're not sure if you did the Aveira. You would think, right? If you know you did the crime, for sure you're going to be worse. The din is, the halacha is, and Rabbeinu Yonah points it out, that for a chatas, the korban, the value is a danka. A danka is a small coin. As opposed to an osham, a guilt offering, which has to be 2 seller. It has to be an expensive one, cost 2 seller, I don't know what that is exactly, 20 times more than the other one. Something like that. Now, explain that. What's the reason? Why is it that if you did a worse crime, you pay less, but if you did an easier one, you pay more? The reason is precisely because of that. If you know what you did, and you did something that's wrong, then you say sorry, and you do teshuvah, and it's over and done. But if you're not sure if you did that in the first place, the likelihood of you doing teshuvah is not there. You're not going to do teshuvah. Why not doing teshuvah? Because I never did the thing wrong. I'm not sure what I did wrong. So in other words, in the first Beis HaMikdash, there was a crime that was committed. You did it. It's terrible. It's disastrous. Great. You get what you did. You understand. You do teshuvah. But if you're not sure what you did, and you don't even know if you did something wrong, it's really difficult to do teshuvah. And that's why the second Beis HaMikdash, which is the less of the evils, which means just sinas chinam, baseless hatred, it's been 2,000 years. And we still don't know what we should be doing. So we're like, what are we supposed to do? How are you supposed to rectify it? Because sinas chinam, even if you know it's there, you rationalize it and you don't believe that it's sinas chinam. We don't believe that it's for nothing. We always find a reason why we don't like the other person. What do you mean? Right? In relationships. I posted a little video about this on Erev Shabbos, this vart, and I got right away a text from a lady, and I haven't actually fully answered it yet, so I'm going to talk to her, but her question was great. She says, so you mean that even though my husband is a narcissist and an absolute disaster, I should still love him? Like, seriously? What does that mean? And that's the problem. The question is the problem. Good question, right? Great question. What are you meant to do? You have a relationship, and it's terrible, and the other person is literally being impossible. Of course, it's always them. You're perfect. and you can't stand them. And what are you meant to do? Am I meant to take the abuse? Now expand that and look at us as a Jewish people. And you'll see there's so many Jews who don't know the first thing about Judaism. And they hate us. And the worst Jews are Jewish. Even in America, who's causing all the anti-Israel sentiment and all the anti-Semitism in America, who's causing it? I guarantee you it's all Jews. There's a bunch of Jews out there because nobody understands how to do it except the Jews. So I'm supposed to love those Jews. And mind you, if I do love them, that itself is going to give them going to rationalize for them why they are able to do it. So if I care, it's opposite. By loving them, you're actually empowering them. You get the frame? It's almost impossible to get out of this sinas chinam. It's almost impossible for us to be one nation and united and feel a connection and a unity. Because how am I supposed to love that person? Get rid of him and we'll be fine. And that's the question. That's why the Golus has been so long, and that's what we want to discover. Because to get to this point, and to learn how to do Avas Yisrael, is probably the most important thing ever. When Hillel, the elder, was asked the question by a non-Jew who wanted to convert, and he says, Rabbi, how do I convert? What do I do? I want to learn the whole Torah standing on one foot. Shammai sent him flying be'amas abinyan. With the measuring stick of the thing, he kicked him out. And he came over to Hillel, and Hillel says, no problem. Here it is, the whole Torah on one foot. What did he tell him? What you don't like being done to you, don't do to your friend. Zeu kol ha-Torah kulo, that's the whole Torah be'idach perushahu. The rest is all explanation. Zil gemar, go learn. To learn how to do Avas Yisrael, to learn how to love your fellow Jew, is the foundation and the key to learning how to live, how to experience the whole Torah. Once you get that, the rest of Torah flows from within that point. That's the core point. How do we get there? So the second base Hamikdash was destroyed, and we don't know what to do. And if we would learn it and understand it, right, and be able to then apply, then perhaps we could, right now, rebuild the base Hamikdash and bring Mashiach down. Because it's about to happen, we just need to make it, need to do that clincher to get it down. The first base Hamikdash was destroyed and was 70 years. Why 70 years? What's the number 70? So 70 is 7 times 10. We all have inside of us seven emotions that we have. There's 6 emotions and the 7th one in Kabbalah. Total of 6 and 1. So the 7 emotions, cardinal emotions, like the 7 colors of the rainbow, those are what bothers us. So for example, when the Jews entered into the land of Canaan, they came into Eretz Yisrael. What did Hashem tell them? He says, get rid of the 7 nations. Destroy them and annihilate them. And if you don't, because you're wonderful, beautiful Jews and you can't do it, like, what? Just kill them for what? Because God said so. And if you don't know how to do that, what's going to happen? Those who you leave over will be lesikim beinechem belitzninim betzidechem v'tzareru etchem al haaretz asher atem yoshvim ba. Amazing to watch, right? Amazing to watch how Israel invited, at the time, in 1967, 65,000 terrorists, literally. 65,000 terrorists. They said, come back to Yerushalayim after the 6-day war. Come live here. We want to live in peace with you. Who asked you to do that? You won the war. They left. You know what would have happened if they would have won. They showed us very clearly on October 7 what they do when they win. But you won, and Hashem helped you. So why are you inviting them back in? And now you wonder why they suddenly bomb you and stab you. Because that's what they do. Those who you leave among you will be thorns to you at your side. That's what's going to happen. That was the result. And when you win, you're supposed to win. And you're supposed to take over the land. And Hashem says if you don't take over the land, it's going to come to haunt you. Now, figuratively, the same thing applies. in our lives, we encounter 7 devils. And that's your difficult emotions that you have. And what you want to do, and you encounter them, right, as you walk into the world. So when you're a little child being taken care of, there's no problems. The problems begin when you need to go take care of yourself, and you need to go make a living and start figuring things out yourself. And you want to get married, and you want to have kids, and you want to make money, and you want to build a home and a life. That's when you're going to encounter the 7 big, great nations. And Hashem tells you, walk inside with absolute trust in me. Get rid of the nations. In other words, train yourself to get rid of all anxieties, all fears, all sadnesses, everything else. Just let go, let Hashem into your life. That's what's meant to happen. Because they didn't do it, and the Jews walked into the Eretz Yisrael, they did not conquer the 7 nations. In the days of Yeshua, they walked in and they started to conquer, and then it became too difficult. And so they conquered and went back and conquered and went back. And they took slithers of land, but they did not conquer fully the land. And the whole Tanakh is replete with the stories of how those nations give us absolute Gehenna. And the same thing in our lives. If you don't set yourself up correctly, that's what happens. The first Beis HaMikdash was then destroyed because of that. 70 years means for 7 times 10. Each one of those emotions needed to be rectified. And that's why it's 70 years. Because each one needs to be right. Each detail divided, there's 10 details in each one. And they divided each one, and they went through and they solved the problem. 70 years are done. We're back to Eretz Yisrael. Now what happens, when the second Beis HaMikdash, we had the problem was Sinas Chinam. And what it means is the same idea. We want to rectify this sense of baseless hatred. It would be wonderful if it was just easy. Just say, just love the fellow Jew. Love him. What's the problem? But if you really want to love a fellow Jew, and you really want to undo the reason for the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, what it takes is a lot of hard work on our part. There's something we've got to do in order for us to be able to undo the Golus. It's a new way of thinking. I heard from this week, I was talking to someone who was a principal in an elementary school for 25 years. And then he decided, he promoted himself, he said, and he became a teacher. Because he says, to be the principal is a whole different world. So he described one scene. He says it was in Montreal, probably in the story that took place in the 50s or 60s. The story he wasn't present in the story, but the story that he heard. So there was a boy in yeshiva who was impossible to have in yeshiva. And it was very difficult. Like, the kid was just acting out and a menace. Now, the rule in average yeshiva is that we try not to kick anyone out. But what happens when the person is being unsafe to others? So what do? So at some point we have no choice. We realize what he's doing to others. We got to get rid of him. No choice. So in order to formalize the act, they got together. Who came there? The Rosh Yeshiva, the Mashpia, the Mashgiach, the teachers, all of them got together. There's 10 people in the room, and they're all discussing, formalizing it. And they're going through basically, what do you feel, what do you feel, what do you feel, what do you feel? It's a foregone conclusion already of what we're going to do. And so it was clear. It's out. There was someone that was on the Hanhala, on the board of the yeshiva. His name was, he was an old Rav there. His name was Rabbi Yerachmiel bin Yominson. And this is back in Montreal, and I think it was the 50s. So he listens to everyone. He was the last one on the thing. He wasn't an actual teacher in the school. He was one of the local rabbanim, as far as I understood. So they asked, he goes down, he listened to everyone, and they said, no, now what do you think? And it was clear, right? Because everyone's already, all opinions decided, but the Rav has to decide also, what does the Rav say? So he listens and he says, I just have one question. I want to know, did any one of you, of the Anhala over here, give tzedakah and put something into tzedakah in order that, just for the merit of this boy? Did you? Did any one of you say a kapitel tehillim and daven for this boy? Did you say kapitlim and daven? Not just daven, but cry and really and truly daven for this boy. He looks around. You. No. He's like, then you can't kick him out. Because the first thing you do, right, is you got to daven and ask Hashem for help in what you're doing. In other words, it's very easy to make decisions and to run and hastily. You know, we had in our yeshiva the other day, kids are very interesting. It's amazing what they come up with. It's just so interesting. So the boy comes up, he took an Israeli flag. And he came in and he was, walking around the Israeli flag in the yeshiva. And Friday night, he comes in and whatever, it was a whole thing. And then he decided the pareiches would look much better with an Israeli flag instead of the pareiches. So he took down the pareiches and he put a flag instead. And then he was wondering, what, you're anti-Zionist? Like, you don't like the... And he couldn't understand, what do you mean? It's an Israeli flag. What's wrong? And, we have some old Bachrim who are helping to run the yeshiva, and they're very upset. And they wanted this boy, at the very least, suspended for a week. And let me tell you, when you run a yeshiva, it ain't easy. When you're standing in front of the kid yourself and you're having this thing, they push your buttons. Like every button of yours is pushed. That's really serious stuff. It's much easier to be an outsider and just tell everyone what to do. It is. That said, so, so they were upset. And if you don't do anything, then it means you don't care about us and you're not empowering us. That's it. So instead what we did was we made a meeting and we gathered all the people involved. 10 people got together and the meeting was for one purpose. The meeting was for one purpose, to discuss this boy. That's it. The discussion was about this child. The whole meeting, everyone together, the whole team, to discuss this boy. Do you know what the energy in the room is when a room is gathered together to discuss how to handle one boy? And not that. And the conversation was, listen, he has some older siblings who went off the derech, and you got to understand that this moment now, suspension. Maybe it's just suspension, but it could very quickly lead to much more than that. And if it does, essentially what it means is that this boy is being ousted, right? Like David HaMelech says, Ki girshuni hayom mistapeach b'nachlas Hashem leimer lecha bo yidelekim achei. They kicked me out of being in my relationship with Hashem. And so before we make a decision, let's just understand. A flag is a problem, yes. But kicking a kid out, you got to just, understand what goes on. That other kid, in that first thing, this Manal telling me, says that kid is someone today, he's a father, he's a grandfather, he has a beautiful family, and and he's very connected, and all because someone decided to daven for him and not kick him out at that real moment. So here's the story. We all have this, many of us have a dark exterior. And what you need is someone to be able to go deeper into you and to be able to discover the depth of who you are. And to do that is the art of Ahavas Yisrael. Love of a fellow Jew is very difficult to do if you're on superficial level. If you just say, just be nice. Being nice sometimes is very hard. It's impossible. There are principles of what's required to be nice. And if we go deep into those principles and understand why I should be nice and what it means to be nice and how to align my feelings with my understanding, my intellect and my emotions together, then I can actually really and truly be nice. In the Torah, there's a nation that's the opposite of love. The total antithesis. That nation they're called quarreling, fighting. Which word in Hebrew is quarreling and fighting? It's called madon. Riv umadon. Madon means quarreling and fighting. And there's a nation that's named for fighting. They're called Midian. And Midian features very prominently in the Torah, in multiple places. But one of them is that Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem tells him, you have to go on to the next world. And You can't stay here. There's one more thing you got to do before you die, and that is conquer Midian. Take revenge against Midian. Midian had this war with the Jewish people, and 24,000 Jews died in that war. That was a story with Zimri and Cosby, with adultery. It happened over there with the girls of Midian, and then they took them, and they had to win this war and absolutely vanquish them. And then, after doing that, Moshe was able to go back. And Hashem says, I want to latet nikmat Hashem b'Midian. Yep, we talk about revenge. Yes, revenge is not necessarily bad. So, revenge of Hashem against the Midianites. What's interesting is that there's another place the Midianites feature. There was a very prominent Midianite. And Hashem wanted to give us the Torah, and he couldn't give the Torah until Midian accepted it. Who's that Midianite, remember? His name was? Yisro. Yisro was Kohen Midian. He wasn't just a Midianite. He was the Pope of Midian. He was the chief priest. And Yisro studied all types of idol worship. And he came and he said, Vayavo Yisro Kohen Midian. Yisro, the priest of Midian, came. And he said, I know that Hashem is greater. I got it. I studied every type of religion, every idol worship, and I recognize Hashem. And when Yisro, the Midianite, recognizes Hashem, that's when the Torah is able to be given. Midian means to fight. One of the reasons is because Midian attacked us for no reason. They had a very special prophet. His name was Bilam. Bilam was a Midianite, and the Jews were about to enter into the land of Israel, but they were going through Moab. So Moab, I get it, right? Okay, they weren't allowed to destroy them, but maybe they didn't know that. And Moab was in the way. So Moab wants to fight. That's for a reason. They feel attacked. But Moab summons, Balak, king of Moab, summons Bilam, the prophet of Midian, and he says, come and curse them. Now, why would Bilam take a fight that wasn't his? For what reason? The Jews weren't in any way antagonizing him. He wasn't. They were not on his. The Jews were not going through his land. No reason. What's Bilam's issue? He doesn't like Jews. It's very simple. He doesn't like them. Why doesn't he like them? Ask any anti-Semite. What's the reason? You'll always see a reason. They'll always give a reason. But which comes first, right? The reason or the hatred? Midian means hatred. Midian is baseless hatred. And Hashem says, what we need to do is latet nikmat Hashem b'Midian. We're going to have the vengeance of Hashem against Midian. Now let's take a look how we do that. If we want to know how we overcome Midian, it's not Midian on the outside that's the issue, it's Midian on the inside. Which means no nation outside has ever been able to have an effect on the Jewish people unless the Jewish people self-destruct, implode. Nobody has the power on us externally. You don't have to worry about anything externally. You know why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed? You know that they had in Yerushalayim, they had enough supplies to last a siege of 21 years. No nation on the outside could ever, the Romans, right? It was impossible for any nation to besiege. In other words, Yerushalayim was strong enough to withstand the siege. Right? No, which nation can allow itself to be 21 years on the outside? And they had granary and everything was stored in Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim was as safe as you could ever get. There was one little problem. Nobody was protecting the granary and the wine and the oil. Nobody was protecting it because who in their right mind inside Yerushalayim would be a traitor? But there was a bunch of people who wanted to fight the Romans. And of course, not in any, very, very altruistically. All they wanted was the Jews to go out and fight. And so they went and burnt down all the storage houses that the Jews had in Yerushalayim. Everything was burnt down by these guys. And as a result, Yerushalayim fell. That's why there was a famine, because we did it, not someone else. That's always the problem by us. If we want to defeat Midian, we got to look and say, what is Midian? Baseless hatred. You want to win against the baseless hatred? It's called baseless love. And you want to take revenge against Midian. The revenge is called Nikmas Hashem. Now we're going to take a look at that word Nikmas Hashem and understand how to overcome Midian. Not the hatred on the outside, on the inside. Look today what happens, right? We can withstand, there's only one thing we're going to worry about in Israel. Only one real issue in Israel. And that is that there's a hatred, deep hatred going on between the polarization of Jewish society. That's the problem. So same in America, yeah. But that's where the enemies want to attack us. All they want to do is create and hone in on that polarization, that hatred between us. What you want to do is latet nikmat Hashem b'midyan. Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? In order to win and to be able to find love of a fellow Jew inside you, you have to do the vengeance of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now the name Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is a system of 4 letters, Yud, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, right? And that's how you discover, overcome Midian. So if you can do that inside you, you win. Let's take a look at the name of Hashem and see what's the work that needs to be done internally in order to allow the Ahavas Yisrael to take place. The work is called Yud Kei Vav Kei. Do you notice that the Yud Kei and the Vav Kei is the same letters? A Yud and a Hey, and then we repeat the same letter. The Vav is a Yud, just a little longer. So Yud Kei is the same as Yud Kei Vav Kei, just one's brought down, right? The Yud and the Hey, now the shape of the letters here is key. The shape of the letters is what allows you the experience of what it means. The Yud's a little thing, little point, and the Hey expands the point, right? So the Yud and the Hey represents essentially the intellect and emotions. Yud is like a little point, and Hey expands that point. Emotions need to be aligned with the intellect. They need to get married to each other. This world has a lot of division built into the world. In a nutshell, what's the division? The division is the world does not look like a godly place. It looks like it runs on its own. It really does. And your mission as a Jew is to walk into the world, bring your intellect and emotions together, and show the world how it is aligned with Hashem. So we Jews have one point of unity. What's the point of unity? It's the core of Judaism. We close our eyes. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. What's Echad? Echad is the foundation of oneness, of unity. There's nothing besides Hashem. You want to get to a point of realizing there's nothing in the world, only God, is only Hashem, nothing else exists. Getting to that space is the foundation of having Ahavas Yisrael. You want to know how you love a fellow Jew? You have to work hard on the Yud Kei Vav Kei, on the process earlier in order to get you to love a fellow Jew. In other words, change the way you think at its core. Change the way you feel at the core, and then when it actually comes about, right, you'll see a Jew. So let's say the result of it, right? There's a guy here, I must have mentioned him before, but he's an electrician down a few doors down, and he's already retired, so his son took over. He told me, I haven't seen him in 2 years. He came in here the other day. I think he said he was 84 years old now. I said, Mike, let's put on tefillin. He says, God willing, I promise you, before I die, I'll put on tefillin. I said, but Mike, you don't know when that's going to be. Like, no, I'm good. Before I go, did you ever put on tefillin? He says, I think at my bar mitzvah I put on. Now, he's been here for the last 20 years. I've been asking him to put on tefillin. I can't crack him. Doesn't want to put on. I don't know what to do. It's not possible. But all I see when I see him, it's amazing. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And when I look at him, all I see is, bing, let's get him. And it's like opportunity. I think he's a karkafta. I think he never put on tefillin. That's my hunch. But maybe. I don't think he's ever put on tefillin. And when I see him, I'm looking at him in my mind, right? What is he? He is a golden opportunity to get a Jew to put on tefillin at least once. What we want to do is be able to look at Jews as opportunities for good things all the time. So that we can see a Jew in a positive light. Which means when you have a child and the child's acting out, What you want to do is be able to look at them in a positive light. And that means to be able to find always the good. To do that requires a lot of inner work inside you called Yud-K Vav-K. That same educator told us another story. He said there was once a class in Montreal, and they were Masifta, so they were in 9th grade. And there were only, that year, there were only 6 kids. But 6 kids looks like an easy class, piece of cake. Nobody wanted to take that class because this was 6 absolute menaces in that class. And he came over and he said, I want to take this group. And they said to him, sure. If you want it, absolutely. It's like, how do I walk into a class of 6 kids? What am I going to do here? How am I going to handle these 6 kids? He says, I came inside and I'm davening to Hashem, basically, because I don't know what I'm doing. He says, I'm walking into class. I walked in, day 1 on, right, this is my introduction. He says, they were playing a game. The game was, you're it. You're it. Holding on him, you're it, whatever. He says, and there was nothing, it was just nothing there. There was no one to teach. So he says, I davened to Hashem for the right words. And I told him, listen, I said, you know what? I really think that I need to ask the principal to get another teacher for you guys, because it looks like you guys are really brilliant. And he complimented them, said, you guys are really, really spectacular. I've heard such amazing things about you. And I've heard you are really Talmidei Chacham, and you don't buy into any teacher who's not good enough for you and doesn't work. And so you need something better. So I thought I'd be able to be competent enough to teach you. I see that right away that you deserve something better. And he said, I played little kids, right? I played all the time on how they're good, and I'm not good enough for you. And I never heard that kind of talk before. So, he said, they said, you know what? Stay. We promise you, we struck a deal of half an hour. We'll learn for half an hour. He's like, okay, half an hour became an hour. And whatever, it took a few days. I got them all learning. He said, we used to play ball. We used to do a lot of good stuff together. And, but we learned also. We learned for an hour a day. It was amazing. I got 5 of the kids. 6th kid, nothing doing. The kid, he's not goyrus me. He doesn't notice me at all. I don't exist. And I'm sitting up there wondering, what's with this kid? I looked like I can't get through to him. I walk into class, the kid's got a wall. He doesn't even notice me. He absolutely ignores me, right? And you got to wonder, like, what do you do? How do you handle when a kid is ignoring you, right? And you wonder what it is. You know the story about there was a Rebbe who has a bunch of kids, and the classical. He had a bunch of kids that he was teaching, and one of them, he invested all his time and energy and effort in this kid, everything. And one day, the Rebbe came late to class, and he walks in, and he's 15 minutes late to the class. And as he walks in, there's one kid that he invested all the effort in, all the love, everything, stands by the door when the Rebbe comes in, and he goes like that. And the Rebbe is aghast. He's like, what? Like that? When I come late? Of all the kids? And he was like the whole class, he gives the class, and he's so frustrated, so mad, so angry, so upset. And he decided, you know what? He was going to punish the kid, call him over and just give him a massive punishment. Calls over the kid at the end of the class. And he decided, you know what, just God help me. What was that all about? What were you doing? Hashem helps, and he didn't say the words, anything. What were you doing at the beginning? He's like, Rebbe, new watch. Get a new watch. And he's excited about it. Everyone's showing the new watch. What, you came late? I didn't know you came late. I've just been waiting here 15 minutes to show you my new watch. Because I want to show it to you, so look. And your head is thinking something else, right? You got to know what the kid's thinking. So he says he got the principal at the time to call his mother of the boy. Mother calls up the boy, and when they did a little bit of research, they discovered something simple. The boy was 14, 15. It's like this guy was before the principal, right? And then he became a Rebbe. So when he was a principal, what happened was, there were two pre-1A kids, five-year-old kids, and they were fighting between them. And the principal told the boy, he told him off, a 5-year-old. He told him off, and he says, don't do that again. And that 5-year-old, 10 years later, couldn't get over that it was you who said it. So he's like, whoa, at 5 years old, that's what happens? So he tells me, he says, I sat on Shabbos, I went by this boy, he was in shul, I sat next to him in Shabbos, the boy looked at me, jumps out of his seat, like, don't sit next to me. He doesn't even care about me. I said, can you give me 1 second, I just want to say something. He said, I walked over to the boy and I apologized. So I want you to know that I don't remember that story, but I heard that there's something you're upset at me for, and I was wrong, and I apologize. Because whatever happens, I'm wrong for the fact that if you are still upset at me, I did something very wrong. And he says, the second I gave that apology, I got all 6 kids on board with me. You see what it's about? There's a way we look at life, and there's the ability to flip it and to go deeper. And it looks like you're 100% right sometimes, but there's a deeper story being told. There's something else going on that you don't know about. What does it mean, Yud Kei Vav Kei? It's aligning our lives in another way. Yud and Hey represent, well, in Kabbalah it's Chochmah and Bina it's called, but it represents Chochmah, Moicha, Bina, Liba, it's the mind and the heart. What you want to do is wake up in the morning every day and get your priorities straight. How do we do that? We have something called davening. It's so empowering to daven. It's so comforting. It's so connecting. When you daven, what you're doing is thinking about Hashem and realizing that Hashem runs the world and that Hashem created the world, and go deeper. And what does that mean? That everything in the world is being created by Hashem every single moment. Ein oid milvadoi. Davening is a process of realizing and internalizing and saying that and getting it that ein oid milvadoi. There's nothing besides Hashem. And you want to look through that as Hashem is it, the whole thing is God, and then there's culminating in Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And then what you got to do is put the Ve'ohavto and put them together. Because the heart is like a fire and the brain is like water. And so what you want to do is make sure that the brain and the heart are aligned, that the water is cooking on the fire. So there's a passion, and the passion has to be aligned with the way you understand it. Which means, sit there in the morning and think to yourself, Hashem is everything. And then let that sink in and look at it and say, wow, so if Hashem is everything, what does that mean to me? It means Hashem is taking care of me. And that's so good. It feels good. Allow the feeling to seep in. You allow the feeling to seep in by changing intellect into a meditation. A meditation means that you reflect on the idea and what it means to you. So Yud and Hey means to align Hashem and His power with you, and to get that right, to get that sense of connecting to Hashem. It's like you're worried about the Jewish people. You're worried about right now about us being attacked imminently by another nation out there. Recognize this. The Torah says, "Ve'ra'u kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yar'u mimeka." All the nations will see the name of Hashem upon you, and they'll be afraid of you. And what does that mean? It means if we Jews think about it, just meditate on it. We have been around for thousands of years. We are Hashem's people. Hashem has protected us always. Oh yes, we've been through a lot of issues like Holocaust, etc. Yes, and we're still here. Unbelievable. Allow yourself to meditate and reflect on Hashem's care and how Hashem looks after us constantly, and feel it. And as you feel it, right, just meditate and reflect. You could think about something and not dwell on it. By dwelling on it, the feeling settles. And what that does is it makes Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei Nikro Alecha. Yud Kei is your intellect and emotions. Align them together. Feel how wonderful it is to be with Hashem. And then comes the Vav and the Hey. And what that means is, take the Yud Kei, the Vav is a long Yud. So it's the same idea, which is theoretical, to make it practical. After you daven in the morning, and you align yourself with Hashem, and you align the way you feel, now you're going to go and encounter your spouse back home. And then you're going to go back home and encounter your children, and they're going to be acting out, and there's going to be a lot of fun and games and excitement, right? And you're going to go into business, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to encounter those 7 nations, and they're going to fight you. All those emotions are going to go drive you mishuga. And what's your goal? Your goal is to take Hashem and bring it right down into that space. And it's a wondrous, wondrous thing we can do, which is to walk out into the open world and to tell yourself, remind yourself all the time. You'll find yourself, right? The Vav and the Hey. The Vav is the emotions and the action. The 6 emotions and the 7th one, right? The action, the practical side of it. Every time you come into the world, you want to make, the Torah is about making peace. What does it mean, make peace? Peace means tranquility. Echad, one, feel Hashem. So if you're driving around and you're frustrated because you can't find a parking spot, in the morning you will think about Hashem is everything, and I'm feeling a connection with Hashem. Now you watch yourself. Just do this. It's so powerful. Instead of looking for a parking spot, just monitor how you feel about the parking spot that's lacking. And what you'll see is you're just stressing out all the time. Stressing out. And if you just notice that stress, it's so much fun. When you just pay attention to what you're doing, just jumping up and down all the time. The emotions are running always long. We daven every day and we say, Lecha Hashem hagdula ve'hagvura ve'atiferet ve'anetzach ve'ahod. What are those? The 6 emotions. And we say, I'm giving it to you, Hashem. I'm giving it, Hashem. I'm giving it to you. It's all yours. It's all yours. It's all yours. Which means, yeah, I'm just angry. I'm just upset. I'm just frustrated. I'm just anxious. I'm just feeling this. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. All the feelings that you have. And all the time, talk to yourself and say, it's okay, Bubale. Just like you talk to your child, you talk to yourself. And you say, it's all good. Just notice how you're going crazy. And instead of solving the problem, just notice that feeling in that space. And what you'll discover is, you're bringing Yud K Vav K into the world. What is Hashem? Hashem is everything in this world. Hashem is the foundation of whatever goes on in this world. All the nations need to see, when they look at you, a walking Jew. A walking Yud K Vav K. V'ra'u kol amei ha'aretz ki Shem Yud K Vav K nikra alecha. Here's a person, intellectualized, emotion, feels Hashem, walks out into the world and does the work in the world, in action. So you take your emotion and you bring it down into action. Action is mitzvahs. When you do tzedakah, what happens when you give tzedakah? You're flipping over the world to make it into a godly place. Because you're creating goodness in practical side. You're actually bringing the goodness in a real way. So here's the story. The way to defeat Midian, the way to defeat baseless hatred, is by becoming believing Jews. Believing Jews means for real. It means recognizing that Hashem is here. Hashem's world, this is, on the mailbox outside, someone put a nice sticker. So, nice sticker. Hashem is here. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's what it is, to feel that all the time. And Hashem says, Midian only attacks you when you don't internalize emunah in Hashem. Because if you don't feel the emunah, so now you fret and jump about all angry and upset, and then the other person bothers you. The foundation of Judaism is to get to a point where you can truly love your fellow Jew. Look at someone else and just feel them and feel an absolute love for them. I disagree with everything you say. You're totally opposite. You're totally wrong, and of course I'm totally right. But I love you to bits. It's my ability to detach the external from the internal. What you want to do is be able to discover the inside story. The inside story is, there's an Eibishter. You work on yourself in davening, you notice Hashem Echad, and you introduce that into your life, and you walk through life, and you start noticing all those negative feelings that you have, and you bring it right down into a space of Echad. What happens? The world has a new light. And suddenly that spouse who was bothering you before, like, oh my gosh, my husband is impossible. And you'll say, yeah, I'm feeling very stressed out by him. Okay, and? Stressed out, and get into a happy space. And I guarantee you what you'll discover is that he'll still be doing things, but you'll be in a different space, and therefore you'll be able to change the way he's behaving. So he says, Latet nikmat yud kei vav kei b'Midian. And this is a mission for all of us Jews. It's a mission in life. That's why when they came to the war with Midian, all the Jews had to fight it. The ultimate key is to get yourself to a point to notice what you feel about a fellow Jew. Because if you can get that space of feeling a love to a fellow Jew, it's the best battleground for expressing what you are. When you believe in Hashem, you have true emunah in Hashem, it's your ability to walk into a space of when the other guy is causing you stress, and to say, that's the external story. But there's an inside story. And I'm an inside person. Because I live Yud Kei Vav Kei Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei Nikra Alecha. And when you live that, you discover that the nations have no power over us. Anti-Semitism is actually non-existent. The only power of anti-Semitism is when we are not in our power. The second we have Yud Kei Vav Kei on us. The Midian is destroyed, and the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt. And by the very decision of making so, Hashem should help us already, that we should be able to